Hello, US1, and Ramadan Mubarak for anyone who is celebrating. Hope all is well. So, for today, what we have is the battle of the Civil War, the Battle of Gettysburg. So, I've got my notes. I also have a lot of like short little video clips that I found on YouTube, which, if you smash them all together, give you like 20 minutes or so of the movie Gettysburg, which is something we would have watched in class. The movie Gettysburg is actually awesome because it was actually filmed on the battlefield. So when you watch those clips, you're actually seeing like reenactors, and these reenactors are pretty smart. These guys are, they brought their own uniforms, they brought their own weapons, um, and so you're seeing these guys who have put a lot of thought and a lot of energy into this on the battlefield, recreating it with Hollywood effects. So it's actually really, really good. The movie itself, if you're looking for something to watch, is really long, but it's really good. So you have that. So you have that today. There's a little bit of homework for you as well. Yeah. Also, friendly reminder, next week, next Wednesday, you have the next piece of your research assignment is due, which is the annotated bibliography. I put a little video together explaining what that is also online with the assignment. And also next Wednesday, you will have a quiz. So it'll be another Skyward quiz. It'll be on material going all the way back to the Emancipation Proclamation. Okay. So not the video, but basically from the video on. Okay. So yeah, so there's that. Hope all is well. Stay safe, stay smart, and I'll talk to you guys later. Earlier, we said that 1863 is the year of the big battle. No battle is bigger than the Battle of Gettysburg, fought in July 1, 2, and 3 in Pennsylvania in 1863. So right away, this battle is different because it is fought in Pennsylvania. So this is the largest conflict of the war fought on Union ground, right? Union territory. And it will be the turning point of the war. Uh, Lee, after his victory at the Battle of Chancellorsville, takes his army north. The plan was basically to sweep into Pennsylvania and attack Harrisburg. The thought is once you're in Pennsylvania, again, it's 1863. There is a presidential election in 1864, right? Lee has won basically every major battle he has fought. He has defeated every general that the North has thrown at him. So the thought is maybe one more battle, one more defeat for the North, this time on Union soil, will be enough for all those copperheads in the North to vote Lincoln out. And the thought is if Lincoln loses the election of 1864, that's kind of how the South might win the Civil War. So that's kind of the thought here for Lee in taking the war into Pennsylvania. He'll be opposed by General George Meade, who has only just been put in charge of the army a few days before. That is also going to factor into this because he's just learning the fighting capabilities of the Army of the Potomac. So he is going to be overly cautious as well with his army. But he has to play catch up. Lee has got a head start. And so the interesting kind of thing with this, and there you see a picture of General Meade, is that the Northern Army will enter Gettysburg from the south. The Southern Army will enter Gettysburg from the north. And again, the significance of this, again, where Gettysburg is just in terms of geography, that if you plant a Southern Army in southern Pennsylvania, the thought is where do they go next, right? Philadelphia becomes a likely target. Baltimore becomes a possible target. Washington, D.C. is in danger. And again, if you're heading towards Philly, is New York next? Is Boston? Once word of Lee's army crossing into Pennsylvania reaches the north, you do get panic in all of those cities, thinking that Robert E. Lee is on his way to them. So in this battle, Meade will have about 90,000 Union soldiers. Lee will have about 75,000 soldiers for his command. It's a 3-day battle. The first day of fighting sees smaller fighting because Lee arrives at the battlefield late. Meade arrives at the battlefield late. Nobody picked Gettysburg as the place to fight. It's literally where the armies kind of bumped into each other. And then it became a race to who can get their army to Gettysburg first so they can set up a defensive position. The South will win that battle. They will get to Gettysburg first. And by getting to Gettysburg first, they have the choice of which hill to defend. There are two hills that run the length of the area. One is along a has a cemetery on it, so it's known as Cemetery Ridge, right? The other one has a seminary on it, which is a school where people, study to become a priest. That's called Seminary Hill. Um, and so these are the two hills. The South picks the wrong hill. And so this is one of the problems for Lee fighting in a state he's not familiar with, right? All his victories have come in Virginia. He's a Virginian. He knows the geography. He's now blind to the geography. What is also not helping him are that his scouts have not returned. Um, they're out basically on a joyride trying to circle around the entire Union Army. Um, and as a result, Lee doesn't have information. So when he tries to figure out which hill he should take, he picks the wrong hill. So when the Union shows up, the better hill, the taller hill, the hill that's easier to defend, is the one that is left for them. And that is the hill along the cemetery. So the North, at the end of day one, will fortify what is known as Cemetery Ridge, which is will be a long line, almost 5 miles long, which is kind of shaped like a fish hook, with the hook part wrapping around something called Culp's Hill, which is a high hill with tons of rocks and boulders strewn across it. It's a great position to defend, and the Union are going to put cannons on there. And then the other end of the line just kind of ends in the middle of the woods. By these hills, which are known as the Round Tops. You have something called Little Round Top and Big Round Top. And so, if you're Robert E. Lee on day two, your job is to attack that Union position, to attack those hills. And so, you have a choice, right? Do you attack Culp's Hill, which is higher, has rocks in front of it and cannon on top of it, or do you attack the end of the line, which is in the middle of those woods, right? He aims for the end of the line in the middle of those woods. And so the main fighting, the important fighting on day two is going to take place at Little Round Top. And Little Round Top is going to be commanded by a gentleman named Joshua Chamberlain. Joshua Chamberlain is from Maine. He's from the 20th Maine, and he is the end of the line. Right, so we've talked about the importance of trying to get around an enemy's position, right, to flank them. The thought is if you get around them, right, you can then attack them from both sides, and that makes it easier to win. So if you're the South, you're trying to get around Joshua Chamberlain. If you're the North, if you're Joshua Chamberlain, you cannot let that happen. And that is where some of the most intense fighting of the Civil War is going to take place in these woods. So this is a map kind of showing that solid blue line in the middle there. That is the Union position on day two, and also will be on day three. So you see Culp's Hill there towards the middle of your screen. You see how the line kind of hooks around and heads south, and then you have the Round Tops kind of down there at the bottom. So we'll talk mostly about that fighting at the bottom of the screen at Little Round Top and Big Round Top. In front of the Round Tops is this huge kind of rock grouping that is simply known as Devil's Den. These are giant rocks that were just kind of dumped here, and when the glaciers melted way back and before prehistoric times, right? And so you have Southern men who have to basically fight their way through these rocks, and you have Union soldiers defending these rocks. And you can see these things are huge. That's actually a picture of my father and my brother-in-law, kind of like maneuvering amount them. So imagine like close quarters, almost hand-to-hand combat through these rocks. So if you're the South, right, you get through these rocks, and then what you're looking at that's Little Round Top. The end of the Union line is in those trees somewhere. So you get through all those rocks, you then have to go up that hill through those trees. And this is the look from the other side. And so you see those rocks down at the bottom of the screen. That's the edge of Devil's Den. So if you're the South, you spend the night in those trees, safe. You then have to cross through that open ground where you've got cannons and stuff blasting you to pieces. Then you got to get through the rocks of Devil's Den, and then you got to go through that hill and fight against Joshua Chamberlain at Little Round Top. And this is Little Round Top, and so this is where Chamberlain. This is the end of that Union line. This is where it's going to see that fierce fighting. And I've included a video clip from the movie Gettysburg, which will show this scene. And the video clip is great because it was actually filmed on the battlefield at Gettysburg. So you get a sense of the geography as well. And so you get a sense of just the heroic nature of what Chamberlain does. And the beauty of Chamberlain is that he's not a professional soldier. He's actually an English teacher at Bowdoin College up in Maine. Um, but Chamberlain will hold. And so at the end of day two, right, everything looks the same, right? The Union line is still there, still shaped as a fishhook, still wrapped around Culp's Hill, going all the way down to Little Round Top. So if you're Robert E. Lee, when you wake up on day three, you're like, okay, what am I going to do, right? If you're George Meade, you wake up, all right, what's the South going to do? And so what Lee does is, and this is what makes Lee brilliant, is he anticipates what his enemy is going to think. Right? So if day two saw him almost win, if day two saw him almost flank the Union position, if you're Meade, you would assume that's what he's going to do next. So if you anticipate an attack on your flanks, you need to strengthen your flank. Right? To strengthen your flank, where are you going to get those troops from? You're going to take them from the middle. And so if you take those troops from the middle to move them to the edges, that then makes the middle the weakest part of your line. And so that is why on day three, Lee is going to attack the middle of the Union line, right? Which would seem crazy when you think about it on paper, but it makes sense. And the center is going to be the weakest part of the Union line. The people in charge of this, and this is something that's effectively, simply known as Pickett's charge. And this is going to be basically an attack at the center led by this man named George Pickett, who is from Virginia. It's going to be a 3/4 of a mile attack over open ground against a Union position, which is behind a stone wall. And the South is going to lose. Because while the Union position center is going to be weak, um, it's just too, even though it is weakened, it is still too formidable for Pickett. And this loss is known as the high watermark of the Confederacy. So, just some pictures to kind of show you here what we're talking about. This is a picture taken from the southern position on the morning of day three. That clump of trees you see in the center there is basically the target of Pickett. He is told that's where you're aiming for. Take your army across that open ground and attack those trees. This is the picture from the other side. And so that tree line is where the South will be attacking from. You see there's a statue there. It's hard to make it out that there's a statue a little bit over onto the right side of your screen. That is where people believe Robert E. Lee witnessed the attack from. But if you're a Southerner, you have to come out of those trees. You have to cross that open field, again, 3/4 of a mile with cannon exploding everywhere. You have fences you have to kind of like navigate and climb over. The ground is also not flat, so there's some dips and in there. And of course, you cross all that, and you're fighting against a northern army that's hiding behind a stone wall like this. And so the Southerners get there. They actually do penetrate and get across, get over that wall briefly. You see, those are the clump of trees. You see, those are Union cannons. Southern soldiers get as far as those cannons, but there are no reinforcements. Lee doesn't have anybody that he can kind of like throw in to kind of like actually take advantage of this breaching of the northern line. And without reinforcements, Meade, he can send reinforcements, and the southern attack kind of falls apart. Um, and so at that point, after 3 days of battle, Lee's army is, I mean, they're gassed. They've run out of ammunition. They don't have soldiers that can effectively fight anymore. And so Lee is basically left to take his army and head back into Virginia. And so this is seen as the turning point of the war, as a turning point of the war because Lee's army is never going to be as strong as it was on July 1, 2, and 3 at Gettysburg. He will never have that many troops. He will never again attack the North. Um, he was riding high, and this is the first major defeat for Robert E. Lee. It's in 1863. The war is going to go to 1865. Um, but this is the turning point because the Southern Army will never be as strong as it was at this particular moment. Lee has invaded the North, and that invasion has been repulsed. And that how it is basically spread around the nation. It is seen as a huge, huge, huge victory for the North. Um, and again, it is the turning point of the war.